Hi, I'm Joseph Couch. I'm running for legislature in Nebraska's 21st legislative district. This is my second live video here to Facebook where I'm introducing myself and taking questions after I go into a little bit about myself and hopefully some policy as well. This week, we're going to be talking about taxes. First, I'll talk a little bit about why. I don't know if, hopefully some of you saw uh, the Don Walton story in Lincoln Journal-Star last week, where he talked about a letter that Governor Ricketts sent to the uh, Lancaster County GOP. In it, he talked about basically how Republicans are going to weaponize socialism in the 2020 election. And he happened to mention that Senator Hilgers has an opponent who wants to raise taxes, doesn't believe in balanced budgets, and I think he also mentioned something about abortion. Well, he's pretty wrong in a lot of that. I mean, abortion is healthcare, so we'll get into that later. But he's sort of half right on wanting to raise taxes. I do want to raise taxes, but not for the vast majority of Nebraskans. I actually want to give a tax cut to the lower and middle classes, which we should talk about right now. There we go. A couple days ago on Twitter, I asked people what they thought the highest individual income tax bracket was, because last year I wouldn't have gotten this question correct. We asked between 30,000, 70,000, 120,000, and 250,000. And only 31% of respondents got it correctly. There were only, I think, 51 respondents, so obviously this isn't a scientific poll. But it reflects a lot of my experience, where people simply don't know anything about our income taxes, and they think that it's a much higher bracket, like I did. So this means someone making $30,420, they're in the same income tax bracket as Warren Buffett, I believe he's the third wealthiest man on the planet. And I'm pretty sure he agrees with me that he could be taxed a little more. What I would like to see, one moment please, yeah, so this is what our tax bracket looks like. We only have 4 brackets going from 0 to 3,100, 3,100 to 1,800, and then 1,800 to 30,000. Sorry, not 1,800, 18,000. So that's only 4 income tax brackets. An interesting thing, though, is as far as state tax rates go, Nebraska is actually one of the higher income tax rates. Some states don't have any income tax at all, and most of our neighbors have lower rates. That seems a little weird to me, that we have all of our nuance here in all of the nuance in our tax bracket is from those making less than 30,000, those making not a good wage at all, something that's really hard to live on. And that's why I would love to at least explore just making these we don't have to change anything about these rates. We don't have to change a lot, really. I would just maybe move the top bracket so that it starts somewhere in the middle class. Because right now, the middle class for Nebraska is defined somewhere between, depending on how you define it, most people put it around 30,000 to 100,000. $30,000 a year is a lot different standard of living from $100,000 a year, as anyone who's made $30,000 could tell you. If they could just double their budget, and that's not even reaching 100,000, that would completely turn their standard of living around. So if we just stretch these out, so it went from, say, 0 to 20,000, 20,000 to 40,000, and 40,000 to 60,000, I feel like that would be a great way to give those of us in the lower middle class and lower classes a bit of a break. To pay for that, obviously we were going to need to generate some more revenue, and I think there are already some proposals in the legislature that just aren't being talked about. I believe Senator Wayne introduced a bill, I'm not sure if this was last session or the one before, to just create a new income tax bracket for those making 25, 250,000 and above. I would love to explore that. I would love to explore one for those making $1 million and above. Stuff like that. Stuff that isn't going to impact most Nebraskans, but it's real revenue that we can talk about and cut taxes for the middle class, cut taxes for the lower class, and hopefully address property taxes. In the last year, when I've been tracking the legislature, no serious position has been taken, no serious suggestion has been made to address real property tax relief. It's always some sort of sales tax where the legislature admits it wouldn't necessarily be helpful. For instance, when they were talking about a tax on groceries, or already a hard thing to talk about, someone testifying in that committee hearing laughed, saying that we all eat food and we all could eat a little less of it. And the committee members laughed with him. But apart, setting aside the callousness in the face of food insecurity that laughing at that comment says, they're also saying people are going to consume less of this product if we start taxing it. And that means they're anticipating less revenue already. It's backwards thinking. It's not thinking of real revenue sources. So in terms of property tax relief, a huge problem in talking about it is its relationship to education, because property taxes directly feed our education. I would like to explore severing that or lessening the tie and relying more heavily on income taxes for our education funding. That can also be a lot more equitable, so it doesn't matter what zip code you're in, you can still get the same education. You can still get a chance, no matter if you're in a rural school that has no money, or an inner city school that has no money, or a rural school that has a lot of money, or the amount, your zip code just shouldn't matter to what kind of education you should have. And that's why I want to raise income taxes on the wealthiest among us. That's probably none of the 2 people listening right now. I anticipate it's going to be very few of the people who listen in the future, and I'm going to be talking to middle class voters, lower class voters. Myself, let's get into the term middle class for a second, because personally I abhor the term. I think it doesn't really describe things very well, and let me show you why. This is, I believe it's a tool from the Washington Post. I could be wrong on that. But basically you just put in your income, you put in your county, and it outlines where you sit, and it defines the middle class of 30%, the 30th percentile and the 80th percentile. Between that is the middle class. I've heard other definitions of tying it to the median wage as between 2/3 of the median wage and 200% of the median wage. In Nebraska in general, since our median wage is something around 58,000, that generally puts it between 30,000 and 100 and some thousand, which is a big difference in the middle class, and sort of gets to why I don't think the term is very descriptive. Most people, many friends I know, when you ask like how they grew up and they talk about being middle class, they don't really have a good grasp of what exactly that means. They say, I feel like I was middle class, but my life wasn't easy. And that's a that's a great definition for how your life was if your family was making $30,000 or $40,000. It's you're technically middle class, but your standard of living is nowhere near the standard of living of a household income of 100,000. Myself, I thought I was middle class for the longest time just because, I mean, I mean, sometimes I struggle, but I can usually put clean clothes on my back and food on my table. So I know the struggle of occasionally having sleep for dinner, making mac and cheese and rice for every other meal, and cutting back on it because of budgeting requirements. You can't always budget out of poverty, and you can't budget out of the middle class. We're going to be talking about jobs later. We're going to be talking about green energy later, and that's a great way to hopefully raise wages and lower unemployment. But unemployment is one thing in Nebraska where we have great unemployment numbers, but I haven't exactly looked into the numbers on this, but a lot of us are simply working multiple jobs. Myself, a couple of months ago, I was working 3 at one point. Right now, I have 2. And that makes unemployment also a misleading number. We have all these uh, economic monikers, signifiers of how we should feel about our economy. And a lot of us, at least in the lower and lower middle class, we're calling bullshit. We look at the news every day saying where the Dow is, and that doesn't matter. That's just people gambling with their trust funds. What really matters is how much money you're making and how able you are to put food on the table. Another graphic I'd like to look at is this right here is the wage distribution in Nebraska. Sorry, it's the wage distribution in both Nebraska and the United States. Nebraska is the red bars, the United States is the gray bars. And so you can see right, let's see, where is that? That is right here, I think. Sorry. That's where the 30,000 starts. So from here on, that's our entire top income tax bracket. All of the nuance in our income tax bracket is these 3 bars right here. Those are the people that were like, okay, we can start taxing them a little differently, even though the difference between 10 and 20,000 is nowhere near the difference between 30 and even 60,000 or 40 and 100,000. It's a huge difference in your standard of living. It's not exactly where the nuance should be in our income tax system. I think the nuance belongs in the 100,000, the 200,000, and the million range. That's where we need real tax reform. That's where we can raise taxes. This right here, this is where we can lower taxes. And it's where we should, because they deserve it. Most people, I think most people sort of assume the middle class is more of a bell curve, and they think, oh, 2 standard deviations from the median wage, that's where we should be. But most of the people, right here, it's not a bell curve, it's skewed into poverty. And speaking of poverty, we've got this nice graphic here. It breaks down poverty based on age and gender. So I'm not exactly sure how they're tracking their numbers. I don't know, for instance, why we've got these 2 spikes here in the children, and then we're not counting these in the teens at all. But this right here can show us why a lot of young people are leaving their state. They move out of their parents' house, and then they're struggling, and they want to move to a state where they can't be fired for being gay. They move to a state where their state welcomes green energy and the new jobs that are coming with that, because there aren't going to be any jobs in old energy. And they might want to move to a state where they're actually addressing climate change, because our state just now flooded in 2 years. And what's going to happen to our ag economy in 20? Is this really the place they want to build a family? I want it to be a place where they can build a family, and that's why I think we should let these low earners take a break with some tax breaks. This is where we should let low earners invest in new green jobs. This is where we should save our state from the impending climate apocalypse in 20 years. Another important thing to look at in this graphic, so the blue lines are for men, the red lines for women, and there's a higher poverty rate for women across the board. That can be tough to talk about, but it's an important thing to talk about, which manifests in really important ways. For instance, we need more affordable housing, because for many reasons, but one of them is because if someone is stuck in an abusive relationship, if they can't move out of the house safely, then that's just another barrier to them. If they have to move out of the house and they can't afford to live somewhere else, then they're just gonna be out on the street somewhere, and then they're not gonna be able to earn. Oh, it's just gonna be that much harder for them to have a life. So this graph is something I actually found today, and I would like to look into. This is a Nebraska graph, Nebraska poverty levels broken down by sex and age, and it's something I want to look into a lot more. I think it's terrible that women are more likely to be in poverty across the board. I think that's pretty much all I have on taxes for now. We'll obviously be talking about this a lot in the future because it's a complicated issue, and I really do hope to get your input. And now I think I have a couple questions. Less than my first Q&A though, so I'm a little disappointed in you. But it's okay. Let's see. Let's see. Ellen asking if there's any way this can be saved and viewed later. Yes. I have a YouTube channel where my previous Q&A is put up. Also, so you can go there and subscribe to that, and you'll get a notification when I upload this one. That's also where I'm trying to get more familiar with my video editing software and get captions in here for those of you who are hard of hearing, so that you can still get the same sort of interaction. Obviously, it won't be exactly the same. You can still type in a question and I can answer it. Hopefully I can get back to you there. But also, Facebook should process these after we're done being live, and that's usually available 1 to 2 hours afterwards, and you can view it here on Facebook. And, oh, my friend Chad, but I want to know that, so thank you, Chad. What are ways people out of state can support me? So, I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. First of all, ways anyone can support me, regardless of how much money you have, regardless of how much time you have. You can always share these videos. You can share my links on social media. You can share at josephcouch.com. Tell your friends about me, and hopefully they can donate to my campaign if you can't. Anyone can donate to my campaign, and any individual can donate as much as they want to my campaign. Nebraska has no limits to individual contributions. Other states have limits. Federal races, for instance, you can only donate, I want to say it's $2,700 to any given presidential campaign. Nebraska has no such limits. I think that's a problem. I would love to address campaign finance in the legislature. However, I also have very little personal money myself that I can put into this, so I will always accept an individual giving me however much they want. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to. I don't necessarily agree with the idea that if you take money from someone, you're beholden to their ideas. There's probably a reason that person is giving you money, so that like you can always take that sort of thing with a grain of salt. In general, I just think our politics can get a lot better if we take some money out of it. We make it more people focused than big donor focused. So that's one way you can support me, Chad. Um, in the future, I'm getting acquainted with how we're going to be reaching voters. I'm hiring a team, and we'll be doing some regular phone banks here in the coming months. We'll be doing some canvasses. That's a lot easier for people in state. But if you're that excited for me, we can totally get you hooked up with a call sheet that you can call from anywhere, really, as long as you have cell service. Sometimes Nebraska voters would really prefer you to be calling with a Nebraska number, but you moved out of the state, what, 3 years ago, Chad? So if you still have your Nebraska number, I'm sure they'll pick up for you. Right. One last thing. As always, you can keep putting in questions, and I'll get to them. It's fairly consistent, I guess, that I'm going to get a lot of viewers towards the end of this. So I'd like to explain to you how you can get notifications for this, so you can see them right away, at least until I get a more consistent schedule. Right now, for the schedule, I'm thinking I'm going to do one the first Sunday of the month, and then the third Sunday of the month. I'm hoping to introduce what I'm thinking about a policy, for instance, taxes, and then hopefully get more into the weeds earlier on after getting some feedback. So look for that 2 weeks from now. No promises though. I'm just getting my start. But let's see. If there we go. So I am screen sharing with you. If you go to my page and you like my page and you're following, you go in right here and you click on see first, and that should get you notifications for that. That means whenever I post, you'll see that on the top of your feed. If you go down to notifications and turn them on, right now I have myself on for highlight posts. I mean, it's my page, so I'm gonna know everything that's going on. You can turn them all off. You go into edit, you can turn it to standard, and you get all notifications. And that's how that works. That way you never miss any content from my page. And you'll always be right here, and you can just ask a question right away, and you won't have to go in and watch it when it's not live. I think live is a lot of fun. I think it's when you get enough people going, it can be this great back and forth. For me, it feels nice to have you all here listening to me right here. Of course you are, Chad. Thanks for watching, Chad, and the rest of you who turned in. My aunt, Cindy, Robert, always great to see you here. As always, you can email me, text me, go to josephcouch.com. My phone number is there. My email is there. Find me on Twitter. I want to be the most accessible candidate and the most accessible state senator. I just think that's so important. That's why I'm doing these live videos. I really value honesty and transparency. I want you to always be able to have an answer to your question, or at least have an honest, I don't know, but I'll get back to you. So thanks for watching. Please share if you can. Donate at josephcouch.com. and I hope to be hearing from you in the future. Thank you so much.